scholarship in the community college, something that has been sadly lacking, I think, in Thomas Nelson. Dr. Templin will further introduce Dr. Vaughn.
Thank you, Iris. Well, welcome to what I hope will be a continuing series of professional development seminars sponsored under our Title III grant. This is the first, and all we have to do is make sure we continue to get funded, and we'll have many more. It's especially a pleasure for me to introduce Dr. Vaughn because he was the person that got me started in Virginia's community colleges. Dr. Vaughn today is regarded as one of the nation's leading, if not the foremost, intellectual leader of the American community college movement. Dr. Vaughn has served all of his administrative career for over 20 years in Virginia's community college system. First as the Dean of Instruction at 2 of the community colleges, and then as the founding president of Mountain Empire Community College. And finally, as an 11-year veteran president of Piedmont Virginia Community College in Charlottesville. Dr. Vaughn is presently the director of the Center for Community College Education at George Mason University. However, it was not his institutional roles that led Dr. Vaughn to be the preeminent observer and spokesperson for the community college movement, but rather his prolific outpouring in publications that have been so influential in shaping how America thinks about its community colleges. He's a historian by training, and he published his first piece on the community college in 1971 as part of his dissertation. It was published by the Eric Clearinghouse series, and later, under a second printing, became the authoritative history of the Virginia community college system. Since then, he has published 7 books and nearly 50 monographs, occasional papers and articles on various facets of the community college. His topics span the range of subjects from part-time faculty to consumerism to community services to institutional effectiveness and presidential burnout. His best-known work is the book called The Community College Presidency. How did you all start laughing when I talk about that? When he made that, when he was writing that book, and I was alongside of him during most of that, he interviewed over 600 people, surveyed over 600 people, and interviewed almost 100 presidents, trustees, spouses, faculty members. He went away from the quantitative statistical methodology into the intrinsic meaning, the personal meaning that give his work such importance today and such keen insight. But woven throughout all these writings are some persistent themes. One of those is balancing open access with quality. Another is, in the midst of running after different trends and glamorous fads that hit education, the essential mandate of the community college to maintain and defend the comprehensive mission that it has, without trying to be all things to all people. Educational leadership, particularly amongst presidents, has been a challenge that he's offered. He's veered away from the notion that presidents are managers, and rather as educational leaders. And finally, and the one that he'll be speaking on today, is the importance of scholarship and criticism to the health and vitality of our profession and to the community college movement. So as a former community college president, a scholar, teacher, my mentor and friend, I present to you Dr. George Vaughn on his topic, Scholarship in the Community College.
Thank you very much, Dr. Templin. What happened to the crowd? In the other room, we were crowd. I'll understand it. I was sneaking away going down the hallway, Well, my topic today is scholarship in community college, or put it another way, scholarship and the community college professional. Now, I would suggest to you that a discussion of scholarship is difficult in any academic institution. People just don't get together to talk about it. Why? Because everyone has their idea of what it is or what it ought to be, or they don't want to hear about it. And I would say that a discussion such as this is quite unique. Now, I think scholarships, especially difficult for those of us who have worked in the community colleges most of our professional lives, simply because we have not made scholarship a top priority. And I think it behooves us to talk about it, to approach it carefully, but to understand that on most campuses, it is not an inherent part of the community college culture. We just haven't emphasized it that much. On the other hand, I think, and this is something I want you to remember, I know that many community college professionals, and I'm defining professionals as those who work at a community college and who are interested in the pursuit of knowledge, truth and knowledge. So I would not limit that to the faculty member in the classroom, nor would I limit it to the academic dean or any one group of individuals. But I think that we all know that many of our people are very good scholars, that you're doing a good bit of work in the realm of scholarship. The problem is, as I see it, that we don't talk about it. It's almost as if we're afraid to discuss it with each other. Why? Because it has not been, again, to reiterate, a part of our culture. Now, I would like to begin by having you very quickly define scholarship. Jot it down. How do you define scholarship? You don't have a pencil and paper, you can define it in your mind, I guess. And then I'm going to give you my definition. I think definitions are important. Now, my definition, I worked on it about probably 100 hours, so you're not going to have that long. Dr. Templin read it at least 3 times with very good criticisms of it. I gave the definition to a PhD in engineering, a PhD in botany, a PhD in chemistry, that person who heads the whole graduate council for the whole United States of Graduate Studies in D.C., to Dr. Templin on several occasions, to other leading people in higher education. The point I'm making is that it's extremely difficult to define anything, isn't it? You ever try to define something? Pick some abstract concept and try to define it. Well, is scholarship an abstract concept? To most of us, it almost is, isn't it? Yes. So this definition represents a lot of hard work, and it probably is not perfect. And it may not be any better than the one you wrote there in 2.5 minutes, but let's at least look at it and see if you're close to my thinking when you talk about scholarship. Now, if this works, incidentally, I like to tell a story that I was never quite too mechanical. I've never been known as someone who's terribly mechanical. When I left the presidency, the presidents gave me a very nice gift, a CD player. Well, Dr. Templin was the person who presented it, and knowing of my inability to deal with things mechanical, he said, we take down everything but the on-off switch. I've managed to work with the CD player rather well, but all it does is come on and off. I never have been able to program it. Okay, we need some adjustment here. Help. Now, I've got copies of this, and, you know, it might just bring them with me back. No, I left them in your office. I've got copies of the definition, and I don't like to do what I'm just going to do, but I know you're intelligent people, you can read, but I also know it's a long way up there. So let me see if I can read that to you. Scholarship is the systematic pursuit of a topic, an objective, rational inquiry that involves critical analysis. It requires the precise observing, organizing, and recording of information in the search for truth and order. Scholarship is the umbrella under which research falls, for research is but one form of scholarship. Now think about that. The people at the research universities would flip that on us. They would lead us to believe that the umbrella is research. And I'm saying, based upon my analysis and the help of a lot of people, I'm saying that the umbrella is scholarship, with research being only one facet of scholarship. Scholarship results in a product that is shared with others and that is subject to the criticism of individuals qualified to judge the product. This product may take the form of a book review, an annotated bibliography, a lecture, a review of existing research on a topic, a speech that is a synthesis of the thinking on a topic. Scholarship requires that one have a solid foundation in one professional field and that one keep up with the developments in that field. Now, a couple of things are missing there that probably you might have put into your definition. You don't see anything about the search for new knowledge, right? Or the reinterpretation of existing knowledge. Let me quickly give you my definition of research that I felt that I had to define research if I were going to define scholarship. See the emphasis? Objective search for new knowledge or a new application of existing knowledge. Verifiable, based on empirical data, so forth. Research builds upon previous scholarly activities and involves the understanding and relationship among data. It's not isolated. Others should be able to duplicate what you've done and draw similar conclusions in research. I think that what we ought to be concerned with in the community college is scholarship, as I've defined it, or perhaps as you've defined it, if you'd like your definition better, but as I've defined it, rather than a lot of original research. That does not mean that some community college professionals should not do original research. So let me make that clear. If you're doing original research, that's fine. But I'm saying most of us should deal with scholarship, not research. Would anyone like to share their definition and let me know just in a couple of minutes that I gave you there where you were going with it? I realize I didn't give you much time. Yes, sir.
I said scholarship is keeping the mind open to new ideas.
Okay, that's certainly a part of it, isn't it? That would be inherent. I hope that would be inherent in my definition. Yes.
The continued pursuit of knowledge is the way it's a broad general term.
Exactly. Now, notice I used some words in there. A disciplined pursuit. In other words, we learn in everything we do, so we can't just simply pass it off as learning. There's a temptation to say as long as we're learning anything, we're scholars. But there's got to be a disciplined approach. You've got to draw some boundaries. You can't just go everywhere and be a scholar. Otherwise, you end up with a mishmash of knowledge with no framework. Anyone else want?
How it formalizes.
Pardon?
How you would formalize it.
Yeah, okay, you're close to what I'm saying then, aren't you? Formalized approach, yes. All right, let me, now we use about 15 minutes getting down here and all that. We have a place that, I don't want to get fouled up on my time here, it's your break. My break. All right, let me just back up a minute and ask a couple of questions. Why has scholarship failed to occupy a prominent place in community college philosophy? Why have community colleges, with their dedication to teaching, failed to make the vital connection between outstanding teaching and outstanding scholarship? Why have community college leaders failed to emphasize scholarship? Well, I would suggest to you again that a major problem has been in defining what we're talking about in regard to scholarship. We are not unique in that regard. Let me read one quote from Ronald W. Walters, a professor of political science at Howard University and president of the Black Faculty Congress. And let me say what Professor Walter says. Quote, "Many people in education get away with murder because they are not called upon to defend their definition of scholarship." Now, another article in the Chronicle of Higher Education by a professor, R.H. Sachs is his name. He bemoans the fact that many universities value only articles published in refereed journals and ignore the scholarship required to produce an article for a magazine or a Sunday newspaper, no matter how relevant the scholarly work might be to the individual's field or how much the article might do to enhance the image of the university. So in other words, if you're working in a university where you've got to publish or perish, and you do a wonderful op-ed piece in the Sunday newspaper, identifying a major force, creating a lot of discussion, enhancing the image of Thomas Jefferson Community College or your university or wherever you are, you do all that, and you go up for promotion or tenure, you get no credit for it. This man's saying that's wrong, that we should emphasize this type of scholarship just as much as we do scholarship published in refereed journals. Everyone know what a refereed journal is? I don't want to insult your intelligence, but we educators, as you know, we throw around words. Well, in theory, it means that you send a manuscript into a journal and you have it reviewed by several people. In practice, it means a lot of publications have editorial boards and the editor makes a decision, publishes what he or she wants to. That's a fact. All right, back to definitions. If you accept my definition, I think it's safe to conclude that most of us should not engage in a lot of original research. A lot of research is defined by discovering new knowledge or reinterpreting existing knowledge. On the other hand, if you accept my definition, you've got to know that all of us must be devoted to scholarship. It's us. It's as much us as breathing, eating, or anything else, as is anything else. So why have we shied away from scholarship? I think first of all, we have not acknowledged that vital link between scholarship and outstanding teaching. Let me, I'm doing a survey of a bunch of deans, if I can put my finger on it there. This is from a dean in another state of Alabama. It said, certainly community college professionals have not engaged in the pursuit of scholastic endeavors because of frame of reference and priority. Educational preparation for community college educators during the inception years was not a liberal arts orientation. High school teachers and industrial artisans were initially the primary source of community college faculty and administrators. Scholarship had not been a high priority among college educators because the genuine value of scholarship in teaching had not been realized, so forth. Well, I would say to you, no matter where we came from, we all came from a variety of sources. I would say to you that as a faculty, it is now time that you start thinking as a faculty at Thomas Jefferson Community College, and that you forget about whatever origins you have, whether it's liberal arts, technical, or whatever, and view yourself as a professional member of this faculty. So we haven't made that link. Community college faculty and administrators should not be excused from engaging in scholarship because we define ourselves as a teaching institution. To the contrary, I would say that it's even more important for us to engage in scholarship because we do lack that excitement, that curiosity that comes from research. In other words, we're not doing research and we're not scholars, then we stagnate, we become burned out. So in other words, I would say it's even more important for us to be sensitive to this issue than perhaps someone who's engaged in original research. I think another reason that we haven't done a lot of scholarship is that we fail to recognize it and reward it. It's never, ever discussed on most campuses in the faculty promotion process and the faculty retention process. We just simply do not acknowledge that it should exist. And I put a lot of blame here on deans and presidents, incidentally. I think most presidents and most deans have not created an environment, a climate that would want you to talk about it. Too often we would be afraid that it would be used as punishment. I make a statement in somewhere where I've written, it must not be scholarship or purge, playing on the old publish or purge thing. We don't want that. No one wants that. And I'm certainly not advocating that. But I think maybe deans and presidents have stepped back too far. And part of it has been that many deans and presidents don't want to promote scholarship too much. Why not? Pardon? Well, it really doesn't cost money if you consider it as a professional as part of your everyday existence. Well, what would you do to the deans and presidents if they start talking about scholarship? What would you? Let's see it, right? Tell me about yours, right? Exactly. So I think that's been part of it. I really do. Now, and I think everyone here will be able to identify with this statement. I think that community college leaders have failed to realize that their obligation to their profession goes well beyond the obligation to the job. Now, by professionals, I'm talking about, again, all groups, not just teaching faculty, not just administrators, not just support staff. Why? Well, teaching faculty members teach 15 hours a week. You advise student after student. You serve on an endless number of committees that meet perpetually, or so it seems. You do all these things, and finally, you throw up your hands and you say, I can do no more. Now, all these things, I think, are job-related. Most administrators, believe it or not, their schedules are just about as hectic. So what do? We think in terms of the job rather than the profession. And in fact, we resent the suggestion that we do more than what we're doing. I do this, this, and this. This is my job. Don't tell me about scholarship. Don't tell me I'll be doing this stuff. You get angry. You resent it, right? You're doing all you can do. Well, I'm saying to you that if you think in terms of the job, instead of thinking in terms of the profession, you're on a dead-end road mentally and probably physically. It does affect you. You stay with it long enough. You're on a dead-end road. You really are. You got to think in terms of the profession, not the job. It's hard. And there are some days that I think only of the job. As I've said, when you have the Monday morning blues, it's Friday afternoon, you got problems. Well, we do some of that, don't we? We just can't wait to get out because we want the job over with for that day or that week or whatever. The fifth reason that we have not done what I think we ought to do with scholarship is that we've been sucked into the debate, sucked in, at least intellectually, into the debate of scholarship versus research. When I first opened the discussion, when you first started doing your definitions, when you first started looking at my definitions, they all ran together. And I think, I'm sorry, let me back up. You've been sucked into the age-old debate of teaching versus research. Pardon me, I made a mistake. Of teaching versus research, not teaching versus scholarship. Teaching versus research, if you pit that argument against each other, teaching versus research, I guarantee you, teaching ought to win out every single time with the community college professional. But if you talk about teaching versus scholarship, I would go back to my statement earlier that you cannot be an outstanding teacher without being a scholar. So the debate of teaching versus research is not even relevant to us. Not even relevant to the community college professional. Well, I see some encouraging signs regarding scholarship on the horizon. First of all, no matter what you think about the assessment movement, I know what some of you think about it. You don't want to hear it anymore. But it has put a new focus on the idea of being responsible for the teaching and learning process, or being able to evaluate the teaching and learning process. So many people are saying that if I've got to evaluate anyway because the State Council of Higher Education or someone says that I do, then I might as well carry it a step further and really see what's happening. This is resulting in the teacher as researcher, the teacher as researcher concept. Are you familiar with that? That's going to be very important in your future, I believe. That is doing research on your own teaching. And I don't like the word research there because it's a lot looser than what I define research as being. But the teacher as researcher, or the scholarship of teaching, well, this grew out of the assessment movement. A second, or in part this, a second reason I think scholarship has come to the forefront is that the AACJC finally, after 70 years or whatever, 70 years, finally said something about scholarship in the Futures Commission report. Some of you have seen that. You remember have you had that on your campus back then? Okay. But they finally took a stand and said that all teachers should be scholars. And that's the first time the ACJC has ever said anything. The third reason is that the ACJC has also had some of its councils look at it, such as the Humanities Council and some other things. Now, I'm not going to talk about how we can bring scholarship to this campus at this time. I'm going to discuss that some with the smaller group. But now, if I may, I would like to share with you some tricks of the trade I've discovered that have helped me in doing my own work. Some of them are very simple. Maybe they're all very simple, but anyway, just what has worked for me. And I thought you might enjoy some of that, and then I will leave some time for questions. But let me run through these rather quickly. I hope you'll be able to read these, and I hope I can get out of the way. I'll put these up rather quickly and not belabor them too long. I've never had so many papers. I'm amazed that I've got two sentences together. And maybe in other words, if you hate statistics, don't devote your scholarly work to statistical studies. Do something that you enjoy. It should be fun. That's so much common sense, isn't it? You work well in the morning, pursue scholarly activities in the morning. You work well with music playing in the background, play music. You got teenagers who are slightly beyond and they play their music, find another place. You know, we all, everyone in here, has many times over told students, find a place to study, right? Get your own little corner, no matter if it's only a 2x4 space, and you got one little block there. But how many of you, when you start to do things, you're in the kitchen, on the table, spread out, and all that? I'm saying to you that you ought to find your own little place to do your scholarly work and take the advice that you give, right? And as I say, it sounds elementary, but develop good work habits. My big failure is I'm totally disorganized. I have a horrible time. I have to have not only have a space, but I have to have a whole room. I've got everything thrown out, and then I fumble around in it, and it's really bad. But most of us, I think that's probably better than getting everything so well organized the way some of us do. You know what I mean? Everything's got to be in its place. I call that cleaning out drawers. You know, you ever clean out drawers at home because you don't want to do what you ought to do? So you say, it's about time I straighten out that drawer or whatever. I tell everyone as an undergraduate I had the shiniest shoes on campus. not the best grades, but the shiniest shoes. Why? Instead of studying for that test, I thought I'd shine my shoes one more time. This type of thing. But you should develop good work habits. And it sounds simple, but it's hard. Now, after saying that scholarship must be individual, I throw out this word of caution. You should also, when you're doing your work, move with the flow. That is, if you have a family, as Dr. Templin has, then you do your work at the college. But quite seriously, you don't take time away from the family. What happens is this. You say, well, I've got to get that done. I've got to devote 2 hours to this. I promised myself I would. So you rip yourself away. You go lock yourself up in your room. You get angry at yourself. You get angry at your spouse. You get angry at your children. Plus the fact while you're locked up, you don't do anything. So why not let them go to bed? Or why not get up early in the morning? Or why not let them be doing their schoolwork? And then you do yours. I always did work very early on Saturday morning, about 6 a.m., because my wife, Peggy, always liked to sleep late on Saturday, as did the boys. We have 2 sons. Well, by 11 o'clock, by the time they got up and started moving around, I'd had 5 hours work in. They were going to school, and Peggy's a teacher. Sunday afternoon, you know, everything winds down about 2 or 3 o'clock. Well, then I would get in another 5 hours. And incidentally, I would say that getting up at 6 a.m. and doing that 5 hours work, and then putting in your family obligations helps you keep your weight down too. You stay worn out all the time, so you don't gain a lot of weight. But it does work. You got to move with the flow. The next one is a little bit complicated. Keep your perspective broad, but your focus narrow. In other words, look at what you're working on through the broader aspects of your discipline or what you're interested in. But then when you start to try to write something on it or prepare a lecture on it, then you got to narrow it down because so you can handle it. Broad perspective, a narrow focus. Put it another way, found out some English teachers in here, instead of, and every English teacher has a novel inside. Always remember that you can publish a book later. Get the article out now. So don't try to take on the world at once. It just doesn't work. It really doesn't. You can publish the article and then do the book. I was at a conference one night. I was talking about a conference of 150 English teachers. And I said, you know, I'm really partial toward English teachers. I said, in fact, I sleep with one every chance I get. Of course, my wife does teach English. This is difficult, what I just said. It seems so simple to throw it up there, but it's very difficult. Broad perspective, narrow focus. Here's one of the more valuable pieces of advice I can give you. It's amazing how the files feed upon each other. Now again, remember what I said, the broad perspective. So you're keeping files on a broad perspective. You will find that if you keep files on a number of topics that are related, then you'll find that your knowledge very quickly grows beyond any single file. I try not to use cliches, but synergism, a synergistic approach, a synergistic happening does take place, okay? The whole will indeed exceed the parts. I remember one time I was supposed to give a talk on general education. And I looked through all my files, and I did not have a file on general education. But I did have a file on citizenship. Well, I looked in that file, and about 70% of it pertained to what a good general education program should be. But if you'll keep a lot of files, it will really pay off. Another thing about these files, it gives you a place to stuff all those things you don't know what to do with. I always have hundreds of little pieces of paper lying around, and finally, about once every 2 weeks, I'll say, well, it'll fit in there. I may have to cram it a little bit, but you can't get rid of them that way. I don't know why, but we don't like to take notes. We go to professional meetings, I go and I sit there and I write on everything I can get my hands on. I don't have a notepad with me, and I usually have one and everything, but people look at me like I'm really strange. Why is he writing down notes? Well, I write down notes because I can't remember well. And I want to remember something. Now, when you attend a professional meeting, you will find that, if you're lucky, that someone at that meeting will say something that's useful. It won't be much, but you'll find that you can pick up a little nugget here, a little nugget there. So what I'm suggesting to you is that you do take notes. When you get home, you look over those notes, condense the 8 pages to about 1 paragraph, throw the rest of it away, take that 1 paragraph and put it in your file where it's relevant. Now, if you keep the 8 pages, then you forget what's in there, right? And as I say, if you look at the 8 pages, there's probably a paragraph worth saving. But you should get in the habit of taking notes, in my opinion, if you're interested in pursuing scholarship. Well, I'll put it up there. I've already said it, but I'll throw it there very quickly. This I found very helpful. And don't get carried away. There's limits to everything. Okay. Now, most of us get writer's block at one time or another. And getting started is probably the most difficult thing we do when we start pursuing our scholarly activities. My answer is that if you formulate your thinking before you sit down, then you're ready to move from the minute you start. My wife's always said that I can produce more pages more quickly than anyone she's ever seen. Well, that's not true, because when I sit down to transpose my thoughts to paper, that's just what I'm doing. It's a mechanical process because I've already, quote, written 90% of what I'm putting down. So no, I do not do it quickly. I do it very slowly over a very long period of time, but I do it while walking, driving, cycling, or whatever. Now, I've learned in Northern Virginia that what you do while you're driving is pray. You don't think about scholarship or anything else. You pray that you'll get home. And I started to eliminate that one, but and I've noticed that down here it's not exactly like a Sunday afternoon drive in the country. Now, really don't overdo that one, but there are some other important things. But it does help. If most of you do this, you almost do it automatically. We're too conservative. I think you need to apply sort of a stream of consciousness to your thinking. Because again, one topic will trigger another. You can always come back and tighten it up. You can always come back and let it make sense. But in the beginning, stretch your mind. Let it flow. You're doing most of this in private, you're going to embarrass yourself. You don't embarrass yourself when you publish it. I know I did something on part-time faculty, which I'm sure that none of you read, but in case you did, it sort of built a very strong case for part-time faculty having more involvement in the campus community. Well, you know, when I was president, I was sort of two people, I won't say Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but at least two people, the president and the person trying to be a scholar who would publish occasionally. So I published this and forgot about it. For the most part, you know, I knew it was there and it was on my resume, but I sort of put it back on mine. Well, this was after Dr. Temple left TNCC, Piedmont, but anyway, these part-time faculty members were really upset over something. And so when they come down the hallway in their hands, a copy of my article and what I said we should be doing with part-time faculty. So you got to be careful, right? I said, well, you know, we're in Virginia and we can't do a whole lot. This sounds a little bit like preaching, but don't let your mind flow too much. Because every well-known writer who's ever lived that I've ever read anything about will come back and say, I could have been a better writer had it not been for alcohol, had it not been for drugs, and so forth. So I would say you mustn't overdo this. Let the mind flow. This is a good piece of advice. Now, this does several things. First of all, it keeps that lecture from getting tired itself. You put new life in your lecture. It also keeps you from getting stale. And it's a good way of adding something new each time. Now, you can't do it every lecture. I've taught long enough and enough to know that you can't go out with something new every time. But if every unit you can add a new piece to it, you'll be amazed how quickly that you produce, if you want to publish, how quickly you produce something that you can publish. Again, look at it broadly, but keep a focus, keep a thread running through it. And that's easy enough to do in your disciplines. But each time add a new segment, and I think you will find it very valuable. As professional people, we keep our commitments. We really do. I'd say 95% of people will keep a commitment. So commit yourself to doing a scholarly presentation at the next faculty meeting. If you want to publish, commit yourself to submitting a manuscript. You can't say you're going to publish. That's up to the editor. But you can say, I'm going to submit a manuscript. You'd be amazed what this discipline does to you as a professional. If you say you're going to do it, you'll do it. It's that simple. In 90% of the cases. So make scholarship beyond your classwork one of your goals for the year. Closely related to that, I think I've said enough on that. I miss Dr. Templin very, very much. I don't miss him so much because he worked so hard, because he's a good dean and all that. I miss him because he was always honest with me and evaluating my own thinking. A very valuable colleague. If you find someone like that, you should cherish them. You should work with them in any way possible. Instead, most of us ask someone to read something, they read it, and they challenge 3 words in, you will go outside and say that, you know, You get so angry, you want to fight. Well, as I like to tell a story about Peggy and I when we were first married. I wrote these passionate love letters. She sent them back to Circle SP. So I learned the hard way. But quite frankly, I would write all this stuff in the early years of our marriage, and I would really fuss with her. She'd go and change it. George, go ahead, make a fool of yourself. I don't care. So I learned that if you can find someone who's willing to criticize what you write, then you don't have to marry them, but you should you should really work with them and count them your friend. If I had someone a 20-page manuscript and they handed it back to me and said, George, this is excellent, they've done me no good. First of all, they have not read it the way I wanted them to read it. They have not been critical. Because I am not that good that I can write a 20-page manuscript and hand it to you and you can hand it back to me and say that's excellent. I guarantee it isn't. I guarantee it's got something there, but it's not excellent. By working with colleagues, you can also produce some things together. This is another point I would make about this discipline concept of the professional. If you're doing an article with someone and you say the deadline's May 15th, then you're going to do everything you can to meet that deadline because you don't want to let your colleague down. So that's another valuable thing in working with someone. I'm trying to think of a couple. Well, Faulkner probably would not have made it if it hadn't been for Maxwell Perkins. We know without doubt that Thomas Wolfe, the Aboriginal North Carolina, Can't Go Home Again, Thomas Wolfe, would not have made it without Maxwell Perkins as editor. So, I mean, these are great minds, and they had to have someone to pull it back to make sense out of it. So don't be ashamed, and don't be angry. Get angry if they hand it back to you with no comments. Plenty of name flies here. Try to find a peer network. Moving on. If you want to publish your work, timing can be extremely important. Unless you're really, beyond most of us, unless you're really in this realm up here where 10 people may occupy at any given time, where your work does transcend time, where it does transcend topics, and even disciplines. Unless you're in that very rare atmosphere, then timing is important. I maintain that probably Bloom's The Closing of the American Mind and Hershey's Cultural Literacy, I don't think either one of those would have made it out of the publishers, to the publishers' review during the 60s. I don't believe either one of them would have been published in the 60s. It just wasn't the right time. The community college field, you should move with topics that are relevant. Right now, we've got two new things out criticizing the community college again for the same old stuff, tracking, and the social critics are out again. Now, I'm glad they are, because it causes a lot of debate. But one book is saying that we're vocational, that we've gone too far in the vocational realm and all that. But the point is, you either can jump in there now if you're really interested in publishing something, you can challenge that and give some reasons why we haven't gone that far, or you can agree with them and get something published. But I'm saying publish on what's in. Anybody here coordinate the Learning Lab? The Learning Labs aren't big here right now. So you're probably not going to get an article published on Learning Lab, but then you're going to move it into individualized instructions with the computer and all that. And again, you'll see this concept coming back. But right now, probably not the perfect time. Assessment. You either move with the flow or tell the people who are advocating assessment where they're wrong and get it unpublished. You want to get something published right now? Put 2,000 in it. Right? This ranks within the top 3 pieces of advice I'm giving you. Learn and operate a word processor. It's amazing how much more willing you are to experiment. You're willing to try words and phrases that you wouldn't try. I'm showing my age here, but I did my master's thesis on a manual typewriter with two perfect carbons. You remember that, Dave? Well, we don't have to worry about it now. I wouldn't change the word unless somebody had a gun. Ready to pull it. I'd say, let it go. If I get by, no way would I take a page over to change a word, but now I'm zipping, back it up. You really do become a lot more willing to experiment, a lot more creative in my opinion. So you really ought to learn to operate a word processor. Now again, I'll use Peggy as an example. She has never learned to operate a word processor. She just will not learn to operate it. Well, I thought for a while that maybe she's not as smart as I thought she was. I decided that maybe she's even smarter than I thought she was, but I type all of her tests. Why should she learn to operate a word processor? I'm sitting there on Sunday at home putting those tests together for her. But seriously, you should learn, if you can, you should learn to operate a word processor. Just the idea that you're learning something new stimulates you to scholarship. It makes you do things that you haven't done before. Well, tell me you hate it. Tell me it's not important to you. Tell me anything you want to. Don't say you don't have time. What I've been talking about today, as I said, is as much a part of the professional person that has living, breathing, eating, sex, or whatever. It's a part of you. Now, if you say, I don't have any more time, it's not a priority, I prefer to go to the movie, that's fine. Don't say you don't have time. And finally, just that, and think of it that way, you'll never have more problems. Now, I'd like to conclude by saying what I've tried to do today is draw a framework around your thinking. To give you something to talk about, think about. Of course, my little hints will not work for all of you. It'd be foolish to say that you got to get up at 6 a.m. and work when you're probably sleepwalking and let down or whatever. But the point is, all I've got to do is get you to talk a little bit about scholarship and to see everyone in this room as a potential scholar who can share what you know with your colleagues. And that's ultimately where you've got to go. Until you can discuss it openly, what you've been doing, until you can be excited about it, you're not going anywhere except in isolation. Found some examples where there's a danger of being, quote, too scholarly on campus, that you become something of an academic outcast because people don't want you doing all these things. You emerge as a curve buster. Is that what you call someone in class who knocks the top out of the grade or whatever? Well, some people don't want to see this on campus. I'm saying to you that that is foolish. That as professionals, you ought to talk, you ought to encourage each other, you ought to profit from each other's work. And when I meet with the committee, I will make some suggestions as to how you might do some things on this campus to bring some focus to your scholarship. Well, I've talked too long and only did about half of what I had up there, but I thought maybe you might enjoy my little hints for doing scholarly work more than you would a lot of theory. Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes.
In your original definition, you included critical hours as necessary to fund scholarship. Yet, although religion occupies an important part of scholarship, the next sort of like research with targets that are necessary to fund it, or is it a component?
Critical analysis, I think it's a necessary component. In other words, unless you critically analyze what you're looking at, you can draw no conclusion that it has no meaning. To me,
Your talk to me seems to make the point that it's important to publish. And so that's the end is to put another notch on your resume. What's the connection between scholarship and teaching? I didn't catch that.
first of all, I did preface everything I said about budget and the event. You do want to budget an event, so I didn't mean to give that impression at all. I'm saying publishing is simply one outlet for your scholarship. The connection between teaching and scholarship is, I believe, that as you pursue scholarship in an orderly, critical way, that you enhance your teaching in a number of ways. Number one, you know more about what you're talking about. Number two, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you bring this excitement to the class, this thrill of learning, of disciplined learning. And I think the students can feel that. I honestly do. And I think that's important. And I think you're better satisfied with yourself, Bob, when you know that you've stretched your own limits in looking at your topic that you're teaching, that you're more alive. And I think an awful lot of this is what it does to you inside. So I would just say that it creates this spark, this enthusiasm for teaching that you can't get unless you pursue scholarship. And I think it is. I think a disciplined approach, a critical approach to it is needed. No, do not go out of here today, anyone believe today that George Vaughn said we should publish. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying some of you should. Some of you have. Some of you are. Some of you will. But I'm saying that that's under this umbrella too. If you want to publish, I always try to make that point. If you want to, you can do certain things, such as either moving with what's big in the journals or moving against it. And yes.
You've explained to us and clarified how scholarship can encompass a number of forms for publishing articles, presenting speeches, and so on. What would you suggest to a committee who's faced with the challenge of quantifying the scholarship of the faculty when it comes time for promotion and so forth? An article is one point.
Are you on this committee? Are you
No, I'm not.
Well, okay, I was going to talk about that a little bit. First of all, I would approach this idea of I'm not answering your question directly yet, but I'd be very careful about, in the beginning, at this stage of talking about scholarship, even trying to say how we're going to use it in the evaluating process. I would approach that very, very carefully. I want to know that people understood what we're talking about, first of all, because the reaction is going to be, for those people who aren't here, well, I don't want to publish, right? That's going to be the automatic spontaneous reaction when you start talking about scholarships to people who were not at this session. So I would approach it very cautiously. Then, I'm not going to have anything else for the committee, but it's very important that you define what you're talking about. See, and if you accept my definition, or if you define it yourself, then that becomes the arena in which you're playing. And you look. Did the president get up and give a talk in the fall that simply said, we're an open access institution, we're serving all these people who couldn't go to college elsewhere, and we're great, Or did he try to get up and build a basis, a beginning, a center, some conclusions based upon research, upon what the experts in the field are saying? In other words, did he make a scholarly presentation or didn't he? Or was he talking to you as if you're a member of the Rotary or whatever? You know the difference in the speeches. Well, a faculty member who volunteers to make a presentation at the next faculty meeting, did he or she truly bring critical analysis to what he or she's doing? And if they publish something, and I don't care if it's in the op-ed page or in your local student, if you have a student public, a literary magazine, do you have that here? Or, well, if you do, but anyway, I don't care where it is. You look at it, and you read it, and you say, is this a bunch of junk or is it a scholarly treatise? I've seen, as I say, some of the best things I've seen are op-ed pieces. Very important avenue. A professor from the University of Virginia did one during the Education Summit on Thomas Jefferson. Extremely well done. I think that probably enhanced his reputation in the eyes of people in that area, and probably did more good for the University of Virginia than had he sent it to the American Historical Review. Just as an example. You got to be careful about a checklist. This is scholarship and this isn't. That's why I say approach it cautiously, use some common sense. Don't get hung up on scholarship or purge type thing. president of the college. And you, if you will, if you start talking about it, and I don't think you want to come up with a checklist and say that this is good and this is bad, not at this stage. You don't want to fall into what we criticize our four-year colleagues are doing. And you don't want to fall into what the journals do. You remember that's why I made the point that there are many outlets. If it's not accepted by 6 of you, it's no good. You know, you don't want to get into that. It's real dangerous. And it is anathema to what we stand for. So I wouldn't try to, I can't tell you how you quantify this stuff. That's what it means. Other questions? Yes?
You're addressing scholarship here strictly in the faculty, from faculty